Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Hi there, everyone. Today, I'm joined by Katie Hall. Katie is an internal audit leader based in the UK who is deeply committed to building connection, confidence, and opportunity across the profession, especially for auditors working outside major hubs. Alongside her role in audit, she is the founder of a regional women in audit community and serves as chair of the IIA Northeast UK Committee, where she focuses on strengthening networks, accessibility, and engagement across the region. What stands out about Katie is not just what she's building, but why. So you have to stay tuned to find out more about that. And Katie is a deeply committed servant leader, and I think a role model worth emulating. So Katie, welcome to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. I know I found you, so to speak, on LinkedIn. I'd seen a post that you made about your Women in Audit project. And I thought, wow, this resonates so much for me with my Inspiring Women in Audit podcast that we should get together and then share what you're doing with the world. So let's start out by talking about you and how you got into internal audit, because we all kind of get in some way. There's no, I think, one way to get into internal audit. None of us learned about it in high school for the most part. So how did you first find your way into the profession, and what is it that you love about it?
I left university and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I ended up working in a law firm and working for one of their clients around that was a debt purchaser and debt recovery for insolvent accounts. And as the regulation changed, obviously, different regulators such as the FCA became more interested. And so I'd been there for a number of years. But there came a time where I wanted something slightly different, and there was a need for us to have an audit and compliance officer within that function to sort of serve that new reg requirement. And so a very small team was set up. It was me and my boss, and we were essentially line 1B. And so I just started doing sort of like compliance and assurance within my function around sort of like the FCA and the conduct side. And really enjoyed it. And so knew that I wanted to do more and I wanted to grow within the profession. And so I started looking at other jobs, still not really sure what type of auditor I wanted to be. And a role came up at Leeds Building Society that was third line internal audit, pure third line. And my partner, my now husband, but my partner at the time, knew a little bit about the function and the chief auditor and said, it's a great learning environment. If you want to go and learn how to be an auditor, go for this role. So I applied and I got the job, and I'd spent a couple of years doing audit and compliance and thought I knew what audit was and joined the Leeds and realised very quickly I had no idea what audit was, what a third line was, what a second line was. And so I learned so much in that function. So I did kind of fall into it, but really enjoyed doing it. I think the thing I love, and it's probably very similar to what a lot of other people say about why they love audit, but I love the fact that we have that helicopter view, that we can see so much across our organizations, and we can really help bring themes together for people who are maybe, because of their role, have to be in the detail. We're able to really, if we do it right, genuinely help people within our organizations to safeguard our organizations, our customers, the risks that we have. I love that part of it. And also, it's just different every day. Like, you can be auditing totally different departments. You meet so many people across the organization. You're essentially business partnering with those people, so you have to flex your approach each time to really help and support them. So I really like the variety as well.
I think that's a huge part of it, is you don't do the same thing every day. I know I was in a financial services department for, I think, about 4 years, and I ended up being the financial super user for the entire department. So I was on every project team. And what I figured out from doing that is I actually don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again every month, which is what the rest of the department was doing. So I was actually the lucky one, even though I felt crazy going from, 7 different project meetings a day. But I think that's something that I learned from internal audit, is just the different things that we do every day, and every audit makes such a difference. And we get to see more of the company than anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're a head of audit now. How did that part of your journey unfold?
So when I was at Leeds Building Society, like I said, it was a great environment to learn in, and it was a real growth mindset team. And so I was given lots of opportunities, as we all were, to take ownership of things and to try things and to help solve problems that our team had. And so I started developing through that team, from auditor to senior auditor to audit manager, where I started to take on more responsibility for sort of overseeing our audits. And I was given ownership of relationships with like senior stakeholders, people on Exco. I would attend committee meetings to represent the audit function. So all the usual things, developing the audit universe, developing the plan, slowly given more ownership and oversight over those things. And I loved my time at the Leeds. It was such a lovely place to work. That entire team felt like family. But for me, I knew if I wanted to keep developing, I felt, it's not for everyone, but I felt I needed other organisations under my belt. I'd only really been an auditor in one place. And I wanted to, sound silly, but sense check. I knew how to audit somewhere that wasn't Leeds Building Society. So an opportunity came up at Monzo Bank for a senior audit manager. So I applied and had 2 years there that, again, were lovely, really great place to learn. And I was given opportunities in that role to work with some people externally to sort of look at how agile auditing, but not in a very typical sense, in the sense of how can we create an environment where the team are empowered to make decisions. And so I was working with a lady called Alex at Deloitte, who was incredible. And she opened my eyes to so much around creating a culture and environment where people can thrive. And it sort of is maybe a little bit of the start of some of the stuff that I've tried to do in my community. And in my roles at Monzo and at Leeds Building Society, I'd been able to oversee audits and I'd been able to support decision makers. But I really wanted to take some of the things I'd learned through my time at Monzo and my time working with Alex to could I do it I'd learned some theory, but could I do it? Could I be a leader? And could I handle that accountability of not just supporting decision makers, but being the decision maker? Because that was like the big step for me in stepping up into a leader. It's like the buck stops with you. So an opportunity came up at Vanquis, where I am now, for a head of audit role. I knew the audit director from a prior life. We'd both worked in building societies in the Yorkshire area. So I applied and was fortunate enough to get the role. And I'm still learning. I think one thing I've really learned about leadership is you're never going to tick the box. Like, there's always going to be something new that you need to figure out. There's always going to be a new person that you need to help and support, a new approach that you need to consider. So yeah, that's how I got into my leadership role.
And I was just going to ask you that, is, what's something you've learned about leadership? If you had to give a piece of advice to someone else, someone, coming up in the ranks who has those kind of inclinations, thinking maybe it might be something I might like to do, maybe not, is there some advice you might give them?
There are so many training courses and books and theory out there around leadership, all of which are really important. Like, definitely go and understand the theory, because you will learn so many techniques about how you can approach situations. But I think the biggest thing that I knew I was going to have to work on for me was that mindset shift of, I am the person now that people come to. I am the person now that is accountable. I am the person now who is responsible for the well-being of this team, but the delivery of this team, the happiness of this team. And so I think, yes, learn the theory, but also prepare yourself for needing that resilience in terms of you are now the accountable individual for all of these things. And it's really rewarding. I don't want to put people off. It is very rewarding, but you do need to you do need to consider that mindset and that resilience.
Right. The buck stops with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Very good. Now, you founded the Women in Audit community in the Northeast region of the UK. What gap did you see that made you think somebody needs to step in and create this?
Like I said, when I was at Leeds Building Society, I learned so much from that team, from the leaders in that organisation, and I loved my time there. But I didn't have as many opportunities to network because I was fairly junior at the time, and it just there wasn't availability for it in the regions. But I didn't know because I never had it, so I didn't know I was missing it. Now, when I moved to Monzo, I was it was a London-based firm. I was a remote worker, and so I would occasionally go down, and I like to think at that time in my career, I was confident in my job, could walk into any room with my stakeholders, tackle any of their questions. And then one day I went into work and my chief auditor said, there is a working group that Deloitte's running. There will be leaders from across the industry. They're talking about agile and high-performing culture. I need you to go for me because you've shown an interest, and I want you to go and meet people from relative peers such as X and X Bank and go and talk to them. Go and find people. And I was scared. I was genuinely like, I have to go talk to people I don't know. And obviously, they were all lovely, and I made some amazing network connections there. But it just made me realize that I'd had this fundamental gap in my knowledge and skill set, if you like, as part of my development into like being a senior audit manager. And so around the same time, I'd also attended a round table in Yorkshire. I think there was one of 3 women, one of whom was a friend of mine who I'd worked with previously. And it was a morning round table. We all arrived early for coffee and networking and then sat down to the round table. And my friend arrived, I'm not going to name names, but my friend arrived just before the start, grabbed a cup of tea, sat down. And afterwards I was talking to her and she said, I should have checked you were here because I figured it might be the type of thing you'd be here at, but I was too nervous to arrive early for the networking in case I didn't know anyone. I was furious because she's brilliant. She's so good at her job and she's so confident in her role. And it was infuriating to me that in the regions, we're not giving women and junior colleagues opportunities to build their network so that they're not frightened to go to these type of things, so that they know people or they know that there will be someone they know, or even if they don't, they've got prior experience that knows they've got the confidence to go in and talk to them and to build things. So it started out small. I wanted it just to be like a informal gathering of people who could come and start to build their network. And it has evolved, but really it was because I think, like you said, outside of those major hubs, in some of the regional areas across the UK, it doesn't feel like there are many, if any, networking opportunities for people who aren't already a senior leader. You don't have a title of head of or director. And sometimes those, after some of my other work I've been doing, some of those networking opportunities that do exist, they felt very stilted. There were often times things for people to come and present how great things were, or it would be a summary of specific. A lot of it was targeted at FS because there's so many financial services firms in my area, and so it was targeted around people talking about how much they know about a certain regulation rather than actually coming together to share ideas and grow your network, but talk about challenges that you might have and how you might address them. Um, so the real spark was, in some ways, fury that people weren't getting what they needed and they weren't having opportunities to develop into roles that they would be brilliant in.
I think that's something that rings true for me too. Is like you felt a gap and you recognize that other people might have it. And I think that's, for those of us who step out into projects like this, it's that it starts with how we feel.
Yeah.
And we build something that, others in our community are who very likely have the same feelings or might not even recognize that those feelings are there. They're just kind of simmering under the surface. Where's my network? Where's my community?
Yeah.
I think LinkedIn is a good place for that, but obviously it's not the same as even, the Inspiring Women in Audit community that I've created. We have almost 600 women in a LinkedIn group that is, of course, virtual. So what you're doing is quite localized and it's in-person events, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all in-person events at the moment.
So how do people find you?
So we have now set up our own LinkedIn group. I advertise through mainly, I started out just posting on my own LinkedIn page and my committee. I've set up a little steering committee for my Women in Audit, would re-advertise as well. I work with partners, and so we work a lot with recruiters. I don't have a budget for this, and I don't. When I was first setting this up, I was at Monzo, so I didn't have an office space. I was working from home 100% of the time, so I needed help from people who could help me with advertising and reaching out to their networks. So initially, it started out just on LinkedIn. We now have a central group for IAA committee, but which the Women in Audit and other forums feed into. And I've been doing this for really kicked off only a year ago. And so there are some further plans around that we want to look at in terms of how do we connect with people in between our events? How do we keep posting on socials, potentially newsletters to signpost all the things we've done and what's coming up? Trying to signpost things that are going on that the IAA is seeing that maybe regional members will find useful. But at the moment, it's mainly through LinkedIn and word of mouth, but the response we've had from just word of mouth and LinkedIn has been really positive.
And where do you see the future of this going in terms of broadening beyond the Northeast region?
So for me within the Northeast, I want to keep growing and progressing and doing more. I'd like to try and rotate our events more around the Northeast so that they're more accessible for people across the region. The IAA centrally within the UK have been helpful. Like when I speak to them, they help me. They've never stopped me, but they're very useful on like the guardrails of how do I make sure that I'm staying aligned to their message and we're not conflicting with maybe some events that they're running centrally. So, because the thing that we don't want to do is confuse any members that we have in the regions. But what I would love to do is now that we've, in my opinion, proven that people in the regions want more community and they want more networks. And yes, online events are brilliant and you can bring a lot of people together to learn and share ideas. But sometimes people just want that in-person community. And so what I would like to do over the next 12 months is work a little more closely with the IAA and reach out to some of my other regional chairs who I'm sort of in that community with, and we all work together across the regions, but I'd like to reach out to them and explore, do they have capacity first to do this, but how can we set up these women in audit communities across the rest of the UK and look for more of a hub spoke, I think is the word, model coming out from the centre and having these communities in the region so that people can get together and develop skills that I don't think people realize the skills they're missing. This thing of networking and just the opportunities you have just talking to people. You learn about new ideas, you learn about how to develop your team, you discover that people have got the same challenges as you, and so you feel a bit more part of a group. So yeah.
You have support out there in the community, and people feel the same way that you do, or people have the same questions that you do. So I think what you're doing with this Women in Audit group is brilliant. I hope it does spread across the UK and beyond, to be honest, because even though we have a group that meets in person, it is a lot of work. There isn't a budget. It's a volunteer organization, but just one meeting in one more region each quarter or each year, whatever it is just enough to bring people together and to have these conversations. So it's just, one more drop in the water that provides these resources and inspires the ideas to others to do this. So I really, congratulations to you for taking this initiative, for doing this on your own from the beginning, and for building this. So I look forward to seeing what more you create with your Women in Audit group as we go forward. But I wanted to ask you too, because that's not all you've done, right? You have also started a future audit leaders community. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is a lot to take on. You've taken on Women in Audit. Now you're taking on the future audit leaders. So what made you realize the profession needed that second initiative, and what does it look like? Is it also regional?
Yes, so it is very regional. It was all very similar to the Sparks Up for Women in Audit. So I think in my mind, Women in Audit was born because I felt like people in the profession needed more opportunity to come together. I had seen similar events in London that ran really well. The IAA have this special interest group that's Women in Audit, and they do a lot of it is focused in London though. And so that seemed like my natural wheelhouse to start. As I was building, because I didn't do this on my own, I reached out to some people to help, and I built a steering committee. And as I was talking to them, I was explaining my passion and how I felt that junior colleagues didn't get the support they needed, and that sometimes women maybe weren't given the same opportunities because they weren't always in the senior roles to go out and network. And the question was asked of, should we not then, is the focus then, should it just be on women? Should it not be on junior colleagues? And I didn't want the Women in Audit community to get too broad, because otherwise then you don't have the direction that you need. But it did stick with me, and it is something that I felt, like I've said, unless you are a head of or a director in the regions, you don't get to attend these events. Most importantly, in the regions, your teams might be smaller. You might be the only audit manager in your firm. You might be the only auditor that reports into a director in your firm. Your network is not large. And so I really wanted to try and find a way that people who were in that middle group of people who had been in audit for a little while were really looking for their next step, but they didn't know where to look. They didn't know how to develop. They didn't know if the next step was what they wanted it to be, because maybe they didn't have exposure to all the senior leaders. So it felt like it was a very similar gap, but born out of a regional need, that the firms are smaller, the teams are smaller. I'm not saying firms don't support auditors. They do. They all do what they can to develop. But fundamentally, if you're a team of 5, you're not getting the exposure to other ways of working and ideas and thinking that you might do in a team of 500. So the Future Audit Leaders Forum was born as an opportunity for people who are managers, senior managers, not yet leading teams, to come together to learn, meet other people, learn from those people. We try and run it so it's not just networking, but I always try and make sure the events that I organise if we've got a purpose where someone gains something. So we bring senior audit leaders in to talk about their career path, how they got into audit, what lessons they've learned as leaders. People then have a chance to just stick up their hands and ask questions. So it was really born to make sure that people who don't have opportunities to grow and develop as much outside of their firms are getting those opportunities to meet peers and to talk. And like you say, sometimes it's just to realize that maybe you have the same struggles as other people, or actually maybe you're further along than you thought, or actually maybe if you want to be a leader, there's 4 fundamental things you're missing, but that's okay because now you know and you can work on them. So you know you have direction for your next step. It was really just to help people who didn't have the opportunity to go out and grow and develop and talk to people.
I really like both of these groups from the networking perspective. When you told the story of your friend who waited until 5 minutes before the event started, I find these days I actually show up early, but when I look back, when I went to my first industry conference, I didn't really know anybody. And so it was quite intimidating. And I think the first industry conference I went to was in 2015. And those were the days when everybody was still wearing suits and ties and their fancy work clothes. And today it's a little bit different if you walk into an ISACA conference or an IA conference or something like that. But it was quite intimidating. So having this opportunity, especially for the Future Audit Leaders Forum, this is an opportunity for them to kind of break the ice or break through that fear of walking into a room and not knowing anyone. Because I imagine the camaraderie builds quite quickly. Do you find that's the case in practice?
Yeah, definitely. It's people quickly meet other people. And what I've seen and what I really hope continues is even if you're stood talking to people that maybe you already know, when people at the event see people who are maybe on their own hovering, they start to welcome them in so that it makes it easier then, it feels more inclusive. And so like you say, it builds that sense of community and people coming together, and then it's easier because even if you don't know anyone, well, last time that group of people brought me in and maybe they'll be there, and if they're not, I can go and talk to other people and I can bring people in myself and sort of pay that forward a little bit so that when I'm stood talking to someone, I can bring them in a little bit as well. So I really hope that it helps people feel more confident to approach those events, but also sort of gently reminds them how nervous they were on their first one and to sort of look out for people on the fringes to bring them into the community as well, so that it's easier for other people to come and join in and participate as well.
I really like that idea because when the first time you come, you might not know anyone, but 2 or 3 or 10 meetings later, you're the one who is welcoming people in to have conversations. And that is only going to help you, I think, in your career as an auditor, because we have to deal with so many different stakeholders at so many different levels.
Yeah.
And so it's a great way to kind of start getting comfortable putting yourself out there, which can be risky.
Yeah, it can feel risky.
Right.
But yeah, it's like I've said, part of the reason I really got interested in leadership was around this creating environments and cultures for people to thrive. And it's really important that the events we run are not about one-upmanship or it's an environment for people to come and be honest and genuine and meet new people, and hopefully they're safe spaces for people to come and interact. That's the aim anyway.
I love the safe spaces. So based on that, what kind of topics has gained traction in your communities? What do people show up for? What are they hungry for? What do they engage with? What really resonates with them that you're providing?
We provide a mixture of things, depending on the forums, because as part of the IA committee, we also run events through that as well that aren't just around these Women in Audit or Future Audit Leaders forums. when I set out, the thing I set out to do from the very start was they wouldn't be industry specific. My husband is an auditor. We're really cool about
A lot of audit in the family.
Yeah, we're a really cool couple at our friends' parties. But yeah, so he's an auditor, but he doesn't work in FS, and I would be invited to a lot more industry roundtables in my area than he would. And there's a lot of really great stuff that he and his team are doing around audit techniques. So the aim is to focus on topics that help our communities and our purpose. So for the women in audit and the future audit leaders, it's things around panel events around beating career blockers, how to handle, we did a workshop on handling courageous and difficult conversations. We've done future audit leader events where we'll have a panel of senior leaders who come and talk about their experiences, but then once they've left, we then break the forum up into workshop groups where they discuss what they've learned and what ideas they're going to take forward. So it's not just a common sit, but they sit and then talk about it. We've run pure networking, so we try and gather feedback after every event so that we can tweak and evolve. And one of the things coming out of the Women in Audit, I was conscious I didn't want to force people to network too soon because some people might find it nerve-wracking. But actually, the one piece of consistent feedback was more time to network, please, more time to connect, and more time to talk to people. So we've also run just pure events where people can come, and we try and have a centre around it. So someone in my committee will do 5-minute chat on here's how to network, here's how to approach people. And then we'll set everyone a challenge of go and meet 2 new people and walk away with their LinkedIn details. But it's just so that there's a bit of a structure around it. But really, it's just then an hour and a half, 2 hours of people coming together and talking and meeting new people and making connections. So we try and do a variety of things. We started last year with a half-day event for the IAA committee around the evolution of internal audit, where we looked at what are the topics, what are things are coming down the line for internal auditors, how do we need to evolve as an industry? And it's those type of things that really bring people in, not this regulator has released this new piece of regulation, I'm going to summarize it for you, which is helpful, but that doesn't get the engagement. What we see people wanting is, how do I and my team need to evolve to stay relevant and current? And also, how do I as an individual take my next step? Or even if it's not that, as an individual, I work in a team of 4. I would love to meet new people I'm perfectly happy in my role as I am, but I just want to understand what other people's challenges are. So it's topics around evolving their teams and evolving them. And it's really important to me that our formats are varied. We will do panel discussions, we will do workshops, we've done sessions where people break out and walk in around different rooms to provide answers to questions, and they'll stick post-it notes up on facilitation. We try and do a variety of things so that people are engaged in different ways.
That's amazing. It parallels a little bit what I do with my Inspiring Women in Audit networking events, where we all post our LinkedIn profiles in the chat, and I ask everyone to connect with at least 3 women, and then we have breakout rooms and things like that. So we're getting to know each other. They come back and we do a debrief based on whatever the challenge or the topic was that we went into the room. So I think that's super important. Being able to do it in person is fantastic. I'm lucky enough that in our group, we have women from all over the world. So it brings that other element of adding, culture and the differences that we have being auditors in different parts of the world. They can bring that into the discussion as well. But I think what you're doing is super valuable. And I don't want to overkill the praise, but I really do think what you're doing is brilliant, and that you saw the need for this and that you followed up on it, and you've created like more than one community, and you're working with the IIA as well. So you have all these different pieces of the puzzle that you're bringing together, can only really help the auditors in your community. So congratulations on doing all of that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the aim.
But it takes a lot, though. I mean, I just think about the time that you must devote to all 3 of these projects. How do you manage all of that?
I mean, it can be time consuming, but, and I wanted to make this really clear. Let's be perfectly honest. This is not just me. I'm not a one person band on this. I could never do this on my own. So when I started the Women in Audit community, it was before I joined the IAA committee. And I'd first reach out to a potential partner recruitment agency just because I knew one of the recruiters there to get their thoughts. And I reached out to a couple of other people I'd worked with previously who were senior leaders and I respected to ask them questions. And one of them is a lady who's now on my committee, and she's absolutely brilliant. And she said, create a panel of women. You cannot do this on your own. Do not even try to do this on your own. It will take more than you think. And she was 100% right. So I have a committee for my Women in Audit. We're about 7 people now, I think 8, including myself. And they are all as passionate about this as I am. They're all committed. So they are the people who really help me when it comes to like running these events and organizing these events. Because if you want to do it right, if you want people to be engaged, you do have to put time and thought into planning the topics and the formats. The same is true of the IAA Northeast. So I have another committee there of people. When I joined, that was already established, and then I became chair. And again, they are all committed, all willing to help, all really excited by some of the traction that we've got in the region in sort of like kickstarting some of these communities and relaunching some of these events that we have around evolving internal audit. Like I said before, I don't have money or a budget. And one of the things that I have yet to do is charge entry to these events, because I think it puts off, especially the whole point is to have junior people coming in, and they are usually have less access to funds, or what you might find is they'll just send one person from the team who is usually then a senior person. So we don't charge. They're open to all. And so from day one, I started partnering with there's 3 recruitment agencies, and they all sort of partner for different events. There's Matt Satin, who really help us, have been incredible with the Women in Audit community. There's Michael Page, who's been, again, really helpful for our future audit leaders. And then HW Finance, who support on the wider IAA stuff. And without them and their support, because they help with advertising, arranging some of the sort of like the sign up events, just trying to get people to sign up so we can get numbers and things. The response from the community in offering venue space, reposting on LinkedIn, talking about it so that people can hear about the communities and stuff, that's been incredible. And then the speakers just trying to get people to come, and everyone is just so eager and enthusiastic. So it is time consuming. It does take a lot of my time, but it would be just a totally impossible task for me to do without the support of the people I have around me.
And your husband is an auditor, so there's a level of understanding there. But I want to sneak this part in the conversation too, because before we started recording, you told me that you liked to make crafts. So now you have something else that takes, I mean, I have my own crafting thing that I like to do. So I know it takes time. It's not just a 10-minute thing. Sometimes it's hours. And for me, it's a great reflection time. I don't actually think about all the other things on my mind. I'm just really focused on what I'm creating in front of me. So how do you balance all of those things, and being married, and being a head of internal audit, and putting your crafting into play as well?
I think in some ways it's being realistic and asking for help. Me and my husband try and split the load at home so that, it's not all on one or the other of us. He's really supportive of everything I do around my communities and my work. When I got the promotion to head of internal audit, he was totally supportive and enthusiastic. So I have a really good support network around me in terms of like my personal life and my friends. I think there's an element of, and it's going to sound really cliched, so I'm really sorry, but you can't do everything, so don't. You can try, but you will fail. There's an element of realism. And I think as well, and again, this can sound cliched, but the stuff I do around the communities and the IAA just doesn't feel like work, because it's so, don't get me wrong, it's tiring and it's hard. I'm not going to pretend that I'm Superwoman and this is a walk in the park. It's not. And like I've said, it would be fundamentally impossible without the people I have around me. But it was born out of part fury, part passion.
Well,
and so it doesn't yet feel like work, and hopefully it never will, because it's something that interests me and keeps me engaged. And so it's tiring but energizing at the same time. And I think that really helps to keep me motivated and to finish work at 5:30 on an evening and think, right, I've got, maybe I need to do this stuff around my women in audit community, but setting time limits on it, because there's always more work. So I'm going to do it for 30 minutes and then I'm going to go and walk my dog so that I've got some outside time as well. So like I said, being realistic, but honestly right now it doesn't feel like work.
And that's brilliant. So I love the combination of the passion and the fury. I do recognize the cliche. I mean, in my mind, as you're speaking, I'm thinking it takes a village, which is also cliche.
Yeah.
But it's so true. Like, how do you create something alone? You can't. You can be a leader, but you've got that have then the ability to bring other people with you who support that vision, who believe in that vision, and who are willing to contribute that time as well. And I love that you set time limits, because I was thinking, like, what kind of leadership lessons do you have from all this? And it sounds like, setting time limits, being realistic, being able to go or choosing to go and walk your dog, to take the time for yourself to reflect and just, reconnect with yourself. Is there any other leadership lesson you think you might add there?
Definitely. Again, some of these are going to sound cliche, but if I maybe talk about them in the context of how I've learned them in the community. So listening, because I need to know what the community wants. I am clearly, it might not come across so well on video, but I am passionate about this. My husband gets tired of me rambling on about it and stuff. My friends are tired of hearing about it. I am passionate about this. And so it could have been very easy for me to just blinkered one set. This is what I want to achieve. And so building the committee was the best thing I could have done. I will be forever grateful to Steph for suggesting it, because it made me realize very early on that whilst we all have the same sort of aim and outcome and passion around this, it shows up for people in different ways. And so I think listening to those ideas and recognizing that these passions and interests can show up and be important for people in different ways, the sort of two leadership things there. And like I said, when I was talking about my leadership journey, so to speak, I've done a lot of roles where I was overseeing and managing. And I think I've always, in my opinion, there is a difference between people who manage and people who lead. And I've worked for very good leaders in my past. And I've seen the difference sometimes when I've worked for people who are managers and what they get from people, and people who are the leaders. And I'm not talking about titles, I mean how the way they embody things. And I've always wondered how do you take that step? And I'm still learning this, especially in my day job. I'm not going to pretend that I'm fully fledged at this, but working in a community environment where I'm trying to lead and provide direction, but there's no hierarchy. People aren't showing up because they're paid or I'm their boss. A lot of the people I work with in the committees, some of them have been doing audit for years more than me and are non-executive directors and chief auditors and regulatory permissions. Like, they're so much more senior than me. So I've had to learn how to speak my vision and provide clarity and build trust with people, so that we all understand the end game and we all come together on that path, and we're all empowered to go out and do what's needed to get this community off the ground.
As a team,
Yeah, exactly. We all work together on this. It's not me pointing the direction. It's my women in audit and my IAA committees. I have two groups of people who come together, and we all have different ideas and different backgrounds, but we all want the best for the profession. So it's just, how do we form that path so that we're all walking down it together?
Well, that is leadership. So looking ahead, I'm fairly confident you have a long career in audit ahead of you. How do you hope to continue contributing to our community and to the people within the profession?
I talked a little bit about I want to continue to grow these communities. Ideally, they become self-managing and I'm not needed. I'm probably not needed in a lot of them now. I'm too passionate about them yet to step away. But eventually, I won't be needed at all. And I would love for people to self-manage, but also build on those communities themselves and meet up outside of our events and things. So continue to grow those communities. If possible, work with the IAA and some of the special interest groups that already exist about how can we build some of this in other regions. I'd love, not sure we're there yet. It's something that's on my list for 2026. I'd love to look at how can we introduce people to potential mentor relationships so that they can, especially outside of their own industry, people who they might benefit from and sort of working with and having a relationship with in terms of mentoring. I'd like to, and this is something that I've been thinking about and someone in my IAA committee is quite passionate about, how do we get people into the profession? Like you
Big
said,
one. That's a big one.
a lot of people fall into this. And with AI growing and junior roles maybe getting slimmed down, how do we encourage people into the profession in the first place? But then also, how do we as leaders develop the next generation of leaders in a new world? So I think that's twofold. How do we understand what the new world is to bring people on? And how do we then give them the experience and exposure they need around things such as courageous conversations, professional judgment in a world that is becoming more tech-driven? And then just keep talking about all of these things and what's next for internal audit, and how do we keep moving the profession forward. I'd love to keep running those events and providing spaces for people to talk about that so that we can keep moving it forward and we don't become obsolete.
Well, I see great things for you in the future. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep building. And you already know that you're going to be handing this off at some point so that others can carry the torch. They are sharing the load of that torch now already, but you know that at some point you won't be carrying the torch with them. And I think that's a sign of leadership as well, is knowing when you can let go and let someone else carry that in your place. So that's brilliant. So I think we have a lot to hear and look forward to from you in the future. So Katie, I want to thank you so much for being on the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.